It is Sunday morning, and you know what that means. It is time for the Sick Podcast with Andy McNamara. The Browns are on a bye week. They can't ruin our Sundays, Browns fans, right? Because they're not playing this week. We're going to visit the Browns at the bye and look forward from there. Lots of fantasy football stuff to get to as well. There's a Germany game going on right now. But what about for the rest of week 10 and also the parlay party? We're going to do maybe a 5, maybe 10-legger later on. So let's get to the show.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast with Andy McNamara, the sickest Cleveland Browns podcast.
Chubb runs, he's to the 10, 15, he's to the 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50. There goes Chubb. He's to the 30, 20, 10, 5, touchdown, Shabba-lubba hub.
It's gonna be sick.
Welcome, everybody. Yes, week 10 in the National Football League. And, well, our Cleveland Browns are on the bye week. And this could not have gone more poorly for Browns fans than even we could have imagined. But, you know, when there's a chance for things to go rotten, if you're a Cleveland Browns fan, they usually do. We know that. We'll bring on in a couple of minutes my guy, Dave DiNatale from WKYC Sports in Cleveland. Talk about the Browns at the bye. Now, some notables in the fantasy football world. And by the way, jump in the chat. We are live on YouTube, of course. The Sick Podcast with Andy McNamara. Click subscribe, notifications on, share it. Get your fantasy football questions in, your Browns comments, betting-wise, whatever you need. Get it in there on social as well, at SickPodBrowns. That's on X, at AndyMC81, and Instagram, at AndyMCSports. Use hashtag AskAndy for your fantasy football questions, and we'll get to that a little bit later on. Now, some notables. Christian McCaffrey's back. He's going to play. He is going to play. And even if it is on a limited basis, you get Christian McCaffrey because he's one of those rare guys where I think sometimes as fantasy players, we get the mindset, sort of you're thinking of it in the video game, kind of a Madden world where player X comes back. If it's a video game, if he's rated 95, he comes back, he's 95. But in the real life, you got to ease back in. McCaffrey's one of the rare guys where it is kind of Madden-like through his career when he has come back from injury. Pop, he's cooking, and he can go right away. So even if there's a bit of a question, you can light up Christian McCaffrey and feel confident about it. The Saints, oh boy, Chris Olave could be done for the season. This is just stay away from the Saints. Outside, like in DFS, if you're doing some daily fantasy, maybe take a flyer on Taysom Hill, but that team is just rancid. Yeah, which might be good news for the Browns or bad news if you're in the tanking mindset. But the Saints are just deplorable right now. I have them actually covering this week because they fired their head coach Dennis Allen. Maybe get that bump, that little bump, but I just don't know if they have the manpower to do it. It's pretty ugly there. Nico Collins for the Texans is going to be a game time decision if he is in or not. Tank Dell is expected to play, so that's good. He's been popping. Nico, even if he does that game time decision, I would expect him being eased back in. Yes, so we got that. Tyreek Hill is expected to play for the Dolphins. Just you got to play Tyreek Hill, but that whole team has just been even with Tua back, it's dicey. Like I said, you're gonna play Tyreek Hill, but do you feel good about it? I'm not so sure about that. Some other starts, I would go Ray Davis for the Buffalo Bills today. He has some standalone power. Quentin Johnston as well. Now, Michael Pittman Jr. is out for the Colts, and our old buddy Joe Flacco slinging the ball around. So Josh Downs must start. Beneath them, bit of a crapshoot. Alec Pierce, long ball, but you're playing the Bills. That's tough. And Adonai Mitchell. The main play is Josh Downs and Jonathan Taylor, even coming off of that horrible fantasy week in real life game the other week there. So we look at that. We'll keep up to date with different fantasy updates, injury starts. It's Rick Thunderwolf in the house in the chat there. Welcome, Rick. Hope you're doing good, man. Get those fantasy football questions in. We'll be talking about that in a few minutes' time. But you know what? It's a good day. The weather's decent. You can get out and barbecue. Maybe put some stadium mustard on it, huh? Slap some stadium mustard on. Maybe it's a burger. Maybe it's a hot dog. Maybe it's a deli sandwich. Whatever. You get your Stadium mustard from ballparks to backyards and everywhere in between. Stadium mustard is a smooth but spicy mustard, rich in taste and tradition. Stadium mustard is real and organic, not manufactured. You can get it at Cleveland Brown Stadium. I had it there myself all throughout town, and you can order it. They ship. So get it. You get the shirts. Get your Stadium mustard. Just that nice brown mustard. Absolutely delicious. I know a guy who likes the Stadium mustard too. Let's bring him in. Friend of the show, Dave DiNatale from WKYC Sports in Cleveland. Dino, how are you, buddy?
I'm excellent. And yes, there's no other mustard I would ever have than Stadium mustard.
There you go. What a guy. And happy belated birthday, my friend. A couple days into the Big
that.
5-0.
Yes. I'm now a member of the 50 Club. I have had people tell me, yes, time for the Golden Buckeye card or the AARP or whatever. But 50 feels good. 50 feels very
good. There you go. Well, you look delightful, my friend. And let's you know what? There's a bunch of things we want to get into here. Now, there's a game in Munich, Germany right now. And this is just a case where I think, when you bring in the Giants and the Panthers, it's more like, hey, I've never seen an NFL game and I'm German. This is fun. The team quality is not good here. 7-0 Panthers at the end of the first. Whew.
Yeah, it's the prison inmates game. It's the game that let the inmates. Okay, we come out and we'll put the TV on. We'll let you watch it. This one is not a good representation of great NFL football that we're trying to expand our borders to at all. Boy,
not great.
They couldn't have picked a worse game.
Like really? That's the one you go with? And Roger Goodell coming out saying that they want like 8 international games next year and all that. So NFL's a money printing machine, and they'll just keep running. Now, you were in Munich, Germany, or you were in Germany like last year, right?
Yeah, I actually spent a little time in Munich as part of a trip through Austria. I went to Vienna and Salzburg and then finished up in Munich and did all the Christmas markets out there. And
nice.
It's really cool. I'm actually going back to Europe at the end of this month and into December. Check out the markets in Belgium this time around. So
that'll be nice.
It's gonna be good. It's gonna be a good time. But Munich was lovely. We spent a lot of time walking through their old town. And it was impressive. And of course went to the Hofbrauhaus too. I was a little late for Oktoberfest, but was able to make it to the Hofbrauhaus, and that was fun.
The official one, not the one in Playhouse Square in Cleveland, which I've been to.
Exactly.
Great schnitzel and the ski shots too. We've done that before. That's great downtown Cleveland.
Oh, I love it. It is for downtown Cleveland. It's a great place, especially if you're going, like you said, to Playhouse Square to see a show or something. But when you actually go to the big one in Munich, and you're cramped in tables and you're trying to you listen to the pa music. There's nothing like
polka. That's right. Well, Dino, you know what? Before we get into the Browns at the bye week, you heard off the top, we have an homage to the late great Jim Donovan. I know was a close personal friend of yours. You did a tremendous job with your write-ups and tributes to him. Just a quick thought on the late great Jim Donovan. So much has been said, the tribute, but he was just an absolute one of a kind. Wish I got to know him. You got to know him very well.
Yeah. And thank you for saying that. He really was, he was the soundtrack for Browns fans. He was the soundtrack for a generation or more of Clevelanders. There's not been anybody. I mean, I've lived all but like 1 year of my life in Northeast Ohio. There's not been anybody like him as a broadcaster, both on television and on radio. He just made things more electrifying with his voice. And he was really an entertaining, funny guy, quick-witted, both on air and off air. Was an absolute sweetheart. Loved his family so much, Megan and Cheryl. I was just we had the funeral this week, and we're going to miss him. We're not going to see his likes for a long time. And I just felt privileged to be able to know him, / work with him / be friends with him / do a show with him, similar to this kind of a show,
Right.
For a good 4 years. It was really quite a privilege. And I'm actually going through now the archive of it, because there's a treasure trove of great Jim Donovan stories that, they aired one time and then they kind of got lost in the
Right,
playlist
move
shuffle.
on.
Yeah, so they're kind of like, it's like NFL Films had their lost treasures. These were kind of lost treasures that I'd like to bring back and let people really understand. Not only was Jimmy obviously a great broadcaster, but he was a great storyteller.
Mm-hmm,
and we're going to try to make that project come to life here soon.
That would be I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, almost like a video book sort of different things. That's fascinating. Please keep us up to date on that. We'll make sure to share that info. That's phenomenal. Well, Dino, the last time we had you on, we were full of optimism, full of pomp and circumstance, full of a little pep in our step, if you will. It was the schedule. The schedule had just been released, and we went through. And I looked at it this morning before the show. I was like, oh
no.
We were going through. We're like, not a problem. This at the bye, I think we had ourselves 6-2, 6-3 at least.
6-3, something like that. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. Not a problem. Right?
No. Right.
Whoopsie.
Right. I think I remember telling people on this very show, the Browns would finish 10-7, but don't take that as a sign of a decline. It's just the fact that the schedule is a little bit harder this year than it was last year. But don't worry about it. Oops.
The scary part is, is that the quote easy part of our schedule is over.
Correct.
That was the easy part.
Correct. That was that trip through the NFC East was the easy part of the schedule.
Yeah, that was rough. Who knew the Commanders would pop as good as they did? That's really the only one where, if you look back, you're like, okay, you know what? Hey, Jane Daniels is amazing. Everything else, you should have been right on track with where you would. And we saw the defense did enough to keep you in games. You couldn't score points. We had that one the Jim Donovan inspired from above Baltimore game where we won. But then last week, right back to scoring 10 points. And granted, Dino, that was against this Chargers team. Like maybe not this year, but like if they have a good draft in offseason next year, we really could be talking about them as AFC Championship contenders.
The Chargers have always been a team that we've always thought of for offense because of they've always had great quarterback play. Whether it was Phillip Rivers, Justin Herbert, obviously now, but Jim Harbaugh's come in and really emphasized defense. And I mean, the Browns just had no chance against that defense. And you're sitting there going, yeah, boy, if they can continue to add depth and maybe another playmaker or two.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think I, as a Charger fan, would start to feel like, hey, we can topple the Chiefs as AFC's power shortly.
Yeah,
I don't think this year, but I think that's coming.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. So bright future for the Chargers, for the Browns. Well, maybe. The only team that may have a bleaker. Well, there's a couple. One's playing in Germany right now, the Panthers. The other might be the Saints, who the Browns are playing off the bye, who are just their owner came out and said, "Oh, we're not looking to rebuild." And my thought was like, you have nothing there to not rebuild. You got Olave's out for the year. Fantasy football is terrible. Derek Carr's a bridge guy at best at this point. Coming out of the bye, what you as a Browns fan do you want for this team? Because I keep going back and forth. One, you want to win because you want to feel good. We've been through those 1-31. Tanking sucks. Yeah. Do you want to get as many wins as possible still, or like, you know what? Just try to get that draft pick and maybe get a QB.
Because I don't think because I don't know if there is a franchise changing quarterback that's going to be available in this next draft. Because I think we all are agreed at some point there's got to be a change at quarterback. They cannot just trot Deshaun Watson back in next year. Although Andrew Berry kind of, very slowly left that, very, very subtly left that door open this week. So normally I would be like, okay, let's just go into Tankapalooza, start Dorian Thompson-Robinson, and
Right.
let's just go. I still think the Browns have it in their minds, we want to give ourselves the best chance to win and this, that, and the other thing. So I don't know if they're going to go into that mode right away. But at some point, I do think we're going to see DTR quarterback, and that's going to be your sign that we're starting to think about next year. Were I the Browns, you're asking me what I would do. I would probably already be in tank mode.
Right.
I'm with you. I hate it, but I also want to be realistic. This team has a lot of reshaping and remolding it has to do. It's just
all those contracts, Dino.
Yeah.
So many. It's so expensive.
Yes. I mean, it started with Watson. It's not just Watson, but it started with Watson. They have expensive contracts. And the other thing, Andy, is this team got old very, very quickly. Whether it was just with some of the free agents they brought in or just guys on the offensive line. Joel Bitonio, to me, looks like he aged 5 years from last year to this year. And, it's not all on him, but I'm just using him as an example.
Sure.
You've got to start blending in some young, fresh talent on this football team in just about every position group possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And to your point, I thought Juan Thornhill with those horrible breakdowns in the secondary last week looked old and slow. And if you don't have those, that defense, Miles, what a wasted 3-sack day. You take those two complete. And it's like, someone that makes a spectacular catch, you can live with it. You take those two breakdowns away, you're a field goal away from maybe winning that game in a slugfest.
Sure.
Didn't happen, obviously. But now you look at it, I thought Thornhill looked slow. That D-line, Quentin Jefferson, they just released him. What a bust. Yeah. Myles Garrett said, we're wasting the prime. But to your point, it's like, all right, Andrew Berry, who said pretty much nothing at his press conference, was you don't, they can't really rebuild that much because of all the dead cap money. Everything's tied up. Like it feels kind of hopeless, but I guess we have to hope that the brain power, the math geniuses, the cap gurus in that building can figure something out because they've kicked the can down the road with that Deshaun Watson thing. You can't cut the guy. We know that.
No, that's an impossibility right now. That's just not going to happen. And I think what you're going to continue to see, and you saw it in the questions at the press conference, somebody has got to take accountability for the Deshaun Watson trade. And somebody is going to lose their job. And it's not going to be Jimmy and Dee Haslam because they own this team. They're not going anywhere.
No.
So whether it's Paul DePodesta or Andrew Berry, somebody is going to take the fall, I predict, at the end of this season for that trade. I believe it because
has to happen.
This team was a playoff team last year, and now all of a sudden you roll it back, and they might finish 2-15. I don't think they will. They've got Miami, they've got New Orleans, they've got some games that I think they can win, tank mode or not. But they're going to be a horrible record football team this year compared to last year. Somebody has to be held accountable for it. And the normal thing is, well, let's just fire the coach.
That doesn't work. That doesn't work to me.
Yeah,
I think we've seen Stefanski
I'm not advocating firing Kevin Stefanski at this point.
No, I'm totally with you. We've seen Stefanski win.
Here,
yeah, go on, Dino. Sorry, you were a little delayed there.
We've seen him win. We've seen him win in so many different kinds of circumstances. I'm not putting all this on him. I really not. But I think somebody's got to be held accountable for the disaster of Deshaun Watson, and that has to be addressed, I think, before anything can move forward. Because I don't know about you. If it was Andrew Berry or even Paul DePodesta prodding Andrew Berry to make the Watson move, I don't want them then deciding who's the next quarterback down the road.
Exactly. We got Grant in the chat saying DePodesta isn't going anywhere either. And jump in the chat on the YouTube channel, The Sick Podcast with Andy McNamara. And look, I think this is the case. where unless the only option to me, is if you don't fire Paul DePodesta, the chief strategy officer, this strategy officer orchestrated the 1-31, the teardown, paired Barry and Stefanski together. Some good, some bad with that.
Mm-hmm.
But if you keep him and fire Barry and or Stefanski, guess what you're going to get? You're going to get another yes man. Yes. You're just going to get another guy. It makes no sense. If you fired Stefanski, you're going to get another young yes man coach. If you fire Andrew Barry, you're going to get another young yes guy GM who all want this slippery, collaborative, no one taking accountability. The snake oil pitches that Paul DePodesta has given and continues to give to Jimmy Haslam is mind-boggling to me. And without him going and changing the strategy, which you've had a decade to work with DePodesta and it hasn't worked, nothing changes if he's there. I just don't think anything changes.
Yeah, I understand what the chatter. I mean, they love Paul DePodesta. We never see him, but they love him. Yeah. But that having been said, that I think is going to be the big thing to watch when the season ends is how the front office, is it reshaped? Is it completely plowed through, or do they say, okay, we just had a bad year, let's move on with let's keep going with what we've got?
Oh boy.
And I don't know if I feel confident. The Browns have a top 5 draft pick, and I think we all think they're going to, whether they go into tank mode now or go into tank mode in December. I don't know if I'm really comfortable with this regime making draft picks, because it's not just Watson. I mean, Jed Wills is a healthy scratch right now as the starting offensive tackle, that's first round pick. Greg Newsome he's a guy. I mean, he could probably start on some teams, but he's a guy. He's not an impactful player. Yeah. And you really look at it, I mean, all the people they've drafted, I mean, I'll give them Grant Delpit. I'll give them JOK. I'm not really sure what else they have. I mean, maybe
I like Emerson.
Yeah, MJ. I'll give them MJ.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's not impressive, even going back to 2020. And
a lot of misses.
So I don't know if I'm
Schwartz.
comfortable with these people being the ones to draft a potential franchise-altering player, be it a quarterback or at another key position.
Yeah. Grant in the chat saying, outside of a playoff appearance, what has Stefanski done? Playoff win isn't from him coaching that game. Technically, you're right. Yeah. NFL is a what have you done for me lately kind of league. Here's my only pushback on that. Stefanski really, since he came, hasn't had a normal season at all. COVID, Baker stuff, Watson, suspension, But anybody not named Deshaun Watson, we've seen success at the quarterback position, which lends me to believe that if you go with, and look, this isn't like Stefanski made up this system out of thin air. This is a tried and tested variation of the Mike Shanahan offense that won Super Bowls in Denver in the 90s. You see Kubiak's, you see Shanahan's. There's O'Connell in Minnesota. There's all these. The system works. You need the right quarterback. So that's why I'm like, well, let's actually align, not want to get the analytic. Oh, let's get, don't give me this Milroe guy out of Alabama, please. I can't have another just running around quarterback that can't throw. I can't have it. So get me a play action guy who can actually throw the ball, a little mobile. Would that be nice?
Yeah.
But figure that out. And Dino, even though there isn't a consensus number one, if your scouting staff gets paid the money they do and your front office gets paid the money they do, it's their job to find that guy.
Yeah.
So do we trust, like you said, do we trust Andrew Barry? And let's remember, Paul DePodesta's record, and the Browns have only taken DTR as a draft pick under this regime with Andrew Barry. Paul DePodesta wanted Mitch Trubisky instead of Myles Garrett. Never forget, okay? Let's not forget that. He at least had a hand or did not say no to Deshaun Watson. And no one could have predicted the catastrophe, but just the fallout with the fan base. Like, Dino, this is not a fun team to watch or cheer for with Watson there. And I wonder for Jimmy, will it take him actually seeing empty stadiums and all the negative media stuff? Do you think that has an impact on Jimmy Haslam?
Oh, I do, because, they have spent so much time this year, this calendar year, preparing the fan base for this new palace that they want to build in Brook Park. That's going to have Jimmy's World, as we call it, where it's like Jerry World, where it's going to not just have this beautiful dome stadium, but it's going to have hotels and restaurants and bars and shopping areas all around it. So the idea that this fan base would be very non-committed to this team anymore, that's the worst thing, to have a non-committed fan base. Because let's put it this way, I remember when the Browns were 0-16 and there was a parade around the stadium and people laughed at it, but I know for a fact it got the Haslam's attention, and they really ended up going all in on John Dorsey as the GM. And you'll remember that was they were very active in free agency and very active in the draft. That was the Mayfield Chubb Ward draft. So they don't want to see a fan base that's turned off and thinking about Cavs basketball or Guardians baseball. So
exactly, you need hope, and the Haslams they need hope. So what is the hope? What brings hope the quickest? It's a new quarterback, not a 5th round pick quarterback. It's a shiny new toy with hope. And Grant in the chat makes a good point. Says the system works, but the discipline doesn't work within his system. And the coaching, the penalties we've seen this year, Dino, disgusting and unacceptable. If you take away, they've beaten themselves in so many different ways. So Grant's absolutely right. The system can work, but you need to, I think, again, at least on the offensive side of the ball, rejig some things on that coaching staff, because you have to get more discipline. What about special teams here? I love me some Bubba Ventrone. I do.
Yeah.
But Dino, we're seeing the lack of kick coverage. We're seeing huge chunk returns. We're seeing next to nothing. The longest Browns return this season, I think, is 29 yards. Happened once. And the field goal kicking is a bit more inaccurate. The only top good thing is the punter, Bojorquez.
Yeah, honestly, he might be, Myles Garrett and Corey Bojorquez might be your only Pro Bowlers this year. I mean, they had like 7 last year. To your point, I mean, the Bengals get a touchdown because of a kickoff return. And then
I was at that game, Dino. It takes the wind right out of the whole stadium.
Absolutely. And then, we see the Chargers get a long punt return to set up a touchdown. I mean, those are points that, now all of a sudden you've got to respond to. And in both cases, the Browns didn't. We're seeing blocked field goals. We're seeing I think Dustin Hopkins has regressed this year. And, to your point, I mean, you're missing extra points. Missing kicks that he was making last year. That's I love Bubba too, but he's got to be held accountable for that, and they've got to get better at that at the second half. They've got to clean that up completely.
Yeah, and that's going to be something interesting coming out of this bye week. Does anything change on the penalties? Does anything change on special teams? We know Nyheim Hines never got on the damn field. Right. That was a hope there. And so, is there a change at special teams? I think this is some interest for Browns fans going forward. Is, do we see any progression, even if the wins aren't necessarily there? Like, I can almost live with, to a point, you're losing close games, but we see, the discipline, the defense is being cleaned up. The special teams is holding. If you can see some positivity, that means 1, you haven't lost the locker room, and 2, you're actually coaching better. But if not, man, like, I can't, if it goes like this, like, do you bring John Dorsey, or I would bring John Dorsey back to bring Ken Dorsey back? The offensive coordinator. Is there a point if Deshaun Watson and Andrew Berry wasn't as effusive as he was before with franchise quarterback at all? If you were brought in to work with Watson, it didn't work. Does Ken Dorsey come back?
No, I mean, that's going to be a big thing. And literally the move, and I was surprised as anybody that Kevin Stefanski relinquished the play calling to Ken Dorsey. I'm quite sure he was ordered to do so. I think we all feel that way. But if the offense doesn't excuse me, make a vast improvement with Dorsey calling plays, that's bad on him. But to Grant's point, if Kevin Stefanski, who now has the play card taken away from him and is the CEO of Game Day, if they're still making pre-snap penalties and 12 too many men on the field penalties, and allowing long kick returns and things like that should be cleaned up by early to mid-November. If we're still seeing that, that's not good for Kevin and in his case to stay around. If because that was one thing I think a lot of us throughout Kevin's tenure here has been like, hey, listen, maybe you ought to give up the play calling because that'll make you a better head coach for all of Game Day. And, he wouldn't do it stubbornly. He wouldn't do it. But now he's done it. So those things have to get cleaned up in the second half of the season, or that's going to be a strike against Kevin when they go to figure out the future after the season.
That's a great point. In conversation with Dave DiNatale from WKYC Sports in Cleveland. That's a fantastic point because, if you take that away, then that is supposed to clean up penalties. That is supposed to allow him to focus in different areas. And if it doesn't, then there's a further conversation to be had. I maintain, though, if you don't get rid of Paul DePodesta, nothing's going to change. You're going to get another yes man in there. Rick in the chat here on YouTube, make sure you click subscribe, notifications on YouTube, The Sick Podcast with Andy McNamara. Rick asks, is there anything to the Browns players not wanting to play with Watson, like playing less strongly with him in the lineup? And it's an interesting question, Dino, because when we saw Jameis Winston come in, or even DTR, there was energy. It was like with that Jameis, there was a dark cloud lifted away, and you could have some energy and fun, and you could feel it from the fan base too. It's like, oh, it's okay to cheer for this team because you don't have the dark cloud of Deshaun Watson over it. I don't know if it's a conscious thing for players, but it certainly seemed like you have that bit of relief off your shoulders. It seemed, at least in that Baltimore game, they were playing much, much more freely and we're having fun.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. I would hate to think that was the case, that, you outwardly that's the case, heck with 4, but now we've got Winston in there. Let's go. I can't believe that's the case, but yeah, like subconsciously there was a difference. We all felt it. When Winston was in there as opposed to Watson, and certainly we all felt it last year with Flacco. It just was a different vibe, not just on the field, but in the locker room with the team. You can't put your finger on it as to what exactly it is, but obviously there was like, okay, well, now we have somebody different here, and it's a different feeling around this locker room. Let's go.
Let's go. Yeah. See what happens there. Interesting, man. Well, we're gonna find out what this team has coming out of the bye. And really, I guess if you're a Browns fan, start watching more college football. The problem is, anytime I've watched, I was in Cleveland for that big Texas to Georgia matchup where he had Ewers versus Beck. Both didn't play well. I watched the Drew Aller game with Penn State. I thought their scheming was not good, didn't showcase him. But it's like, okay, I'm not quite sure what to have there. Anytime I'm watching any of these guys that could be potential picks, I'm like, which isn't good. I have to get more detailed into it, but I really hope watching it, somebody jumps out to me. I'm like, okay, that's the guy. Maybe not the clear overall in the NFL world, but maybe that's the guy that can fit the Stefanski system. That's the guy that could do it. I'm hoping we can find that.
Yeah, because that's going to be they've got to have to figure out an answer at quarterback going forward. And whether, and that's why I do think DTR is going to get some games, because they do want to see what he can do. If he can be the bridge quarterback to take you to the next guy, the first round pick, whether it's Quinn Ewers, whether it's, Sanders, whether it's Arch Manning, whatever, down the road, they need to see what he can do at some point.
Yeah, and to see, if he can stay healthy for a consecutive stretch.
That's another thing too, because if he can't stay healthy, you can't be the bridge. You can't bridge yourself to the next guy if you can't stay healthy.
Exactly. That's going to be all these storylines to watch going forward. Dino, tell people where they can find you, read you, see you, and all that.
Yeah, you can check me out at Dino Cleveland on Twitter or on X, formerly known as Twitter. Check out also WKYC.com. We'll have not a lot of sports things this weekend. Obviously, we're all enjoying a little bit of a bye week, but we'll get it all cranked up next week when the Browns get back at it. And obviously, we'll be keeping an eye on the Cavaliers, who won't lose right now. So, so we will have a lot of good stuff here coming up in the future.
Going to be a lot of fun. Dino, thank you as always, my friend. Enjoy that trip to Europe coming up in a little bit, and we'll talk to you again before the end of the season.
Sounds good, my man. Always appreciate you.
All right, we'll see you later. You too. There he goes, Dave DiNatale from WKYC Sports in Cleveland. The DTR, I got to see if Dorian Thompson-Robinson can play any sort of consecutive stretch games. Step one, can you stay healthy for? Here's how I figured it playing out. You give Jameis Winston, New Orleans, Pittsburgh. See how it goes. You win one, you win two, get a feel. Then you have time to start DTR against Denver and moving forward if things go south. At least, you know what? I don't want them to win necessarily too much because of the draft pick, but at least beat New Orleans. I like to have a good feeling once in a while. My Victory Monday mug has a lot of dust this year. So that would be good. But then you get DTR for a stretch. So one, see if you can stay healthy for a stretch of games. Two, does he play well? Can he win? And then, like Dino said, is he your bridge guy? How does it look? Okay, let's get some fantasy football talk here, folks. Okay, you can get us on X at SickPodBrowns at AndyMC81 right here in the chat. Any fantasy football questions, jump on in. Let's just take a quick little look-see at this Giants. Panthers are up 10-0 in Munich. What a dog of a game. Whoa. Chuba Hubbard, good on him. He got an extension, but you have Jonathan Brooks coming back. Very bizarre. Bryce Young has a TD. Boy, the Giants and these two teams stink. Yeah, well, we'll see how that goes. I'm hoping Xavier Legette has a couple. The Panthers got a couple tools, but anyway, we'll get to some fantasy looks here. So, big one. Michael Pittman Jr. is out for the Colts today. Okay, Flacco is in. Despite the stinker last week, we know they can throw it downfield. Alec Pierce, the deep threat, kind of a boomer bust that way. I personally love it, and I think the upside of Adonai Mitchell is huge, but fantasy football for this week, a little tough. Josh Downs, he's the guy. You got to be rolling with Josh Downs for sure. And then Jonathan Taylor, We got from Rick, let's pop up the hashtag Ask Andy question here. Need 2 of 3 in the lineup. Debo, A.J. Brown, or Nico Collins. Okay, so we're putting A.J. Brown in for sure, no doubt. Debo will play, not 100%. Remember, Christian McCaffrey is going to be back in the lineup. How much does he get used? Nico Collins, it's a true game time decision. I think we really have to see what comes out of Houston before the game. Really try to get a feel. Is it, okay, look, he's going to be limited, snap, any wording like that. It always makes me nervous when a guy comes off because you could just ease him in or not use him too much. You still have Tank Dell as well. So if you want to play it safe, I would go Debo, A.J. Brown. If you're comfortable with how it looks with Nico Collins, you go Nico, A.J. Brown. But I would say you go with Debo. I think it's going to be a fun game, by the way. That's going to be 49ers in Tampa Bay against Baker and the Bucs. Also, like if you got running backs, I think there's a world where you can start both Bucky Irving and Rachaad White for the Bucs. And you've been able to do that multiple times this year. Both have gotten to double digits. Remember, the wide receiver core for the Buccaneers is decimated. Cade Otton must start. Tight end. He could, my danger zone pick, Cade Otton TE1 this week. I think Cade Otton's going to be the top guy. Fantasy for tight end. Which might mean he gets 9 points, right? But you got him. I think just opportunity for Cade Otton. Baker's got a real vibe going with him. Cade Otton is an absolute must start right there for you. So we got, let me just see other injury stuff here. Tyreek Hill, game time decision for Monday Night Football. Okay, looks like, I think it sounds like he should play, but again, is he going to be limited? You probably got to play him. The Saints, Chris Olave's done. Just stay away from that team. Taysom Hill is a flyer, like I said earlier. Jonathan Brooks will be coming back soon. So if you've been stashing Brooks, you can feel okay about that. Also notable, Trevor Lawrence is out. Mac Jones in for the Jags. And while the Jaguars have certainly not been good, also not is Mac Jones, right? He's from Jacksonville. It's at home. Does that give Mac Jones any type of boost? I don't know. Like I said, the day he was drafted, I can find you a Mac Jones in the 3rd round every single year of the draft. There is absolutely nothing special about Mac Jones. Nothing. The most interesting thing is that his name's McCorkle. That's what Mac stands for. Hilarious. But that's it. You're facing the Vikings. I think you light up every Viking you can get on this team. Brian Thomas Jr., I got him in a couple of fantasy leagues, and I'm tracking it. It looks like he is going to play. Brian Thomas has been real good. I'm just looking at an update right now. He's been so good this year on a bad team. Now, okay, so still with the chest, is expected to play. Gabe Davis could also be back. He's going to be a game time decision. So with Mac Jones, with teams on the bye this week, man, like I'm going to play Brian Thomas Jr. I chose to play him over Xavier Legette for the Panthers on one of my teams. So far, he's got 4.9. He's got 2 catches, so maybe that looks okay. But that's going to be a rough go. You're playing Kareem Hunt, obviously. Must start Travis Kelce. Yes. Kate Otten, as I said, yes. AJ Brown, Devonta Smith against Dallas. Light that up. You got to fit. Now, for the Cowboys, let's talk Cowboys for a sec. Their season's done if they lose to the Eagles, and they should lose. And then let's see Jerry Jones really get nuts. I want to see them just go absolutely in the toilet, and let's go. Let's see them absolutely get crazy with Jerry Jones. Let him off the leash. You got to play CeeDee Lamb. He's a little banged up, and it's going to be Cooper Rush. And also, I heard this morning there'll be some Trey Lance package plays. Both the backups are in there last year. Why not see what you got in Trey Lance? Heck, what do you got to lose at this point? I think we'll see some Trey Lance. But outside of CeeDee Lamb, I'm not touching anybody on the Cowboys. You probably have to play Jake Ferguson because the tight end group is so thin, but I don't really like any of it. Let's see. Rick asking in the chat here, who would you play, Etienne or Bigsby? Yes, both are banged up. So I actually have this problem in a couple of my leagues. In 2 of the, and one of them, I actually have both Etienne and Bigsby. So Bigsby last week got, I believe it was like 52% of the snaps, and Etienne was 31%-ish. Looks like it's going to be a real back and forth. I believe because you got Mac Jones in there, you're not going to want to have him do too much. It could be a decent day for both guys. Consider this kind of a really light, less successful version of what they have in Tampa Bay, where you got White and Irving, you have Etienne and Bigsby. Etienne is cleared from injury designation. I'm going to go Etienne this week. Would it surprise me if both kind of cannibalize each other a bit and get low double digits? No. And Bigsby certainly could go off. I just would like to see Bigsby back and healthy and get back into the groove. I think he's the better running back. He's the healthier one. Etienne has a better play today. But again, I think both, because you got Mac Jones in it, both could actually be pretty good this week when it comes to opportunity, especially PPR. Standard, I wouldn't like any of them. But if you got PPR, I think you could see get a bunch of touches because Mac Jones is going to want to get rid of the ball quick, right? He's not going to want to be in there for too long. So let's say out of that one, let's go with Etienne. Okay. Keep the fantasy football questions coming if you got them. We're going to go to some NFL game odds. We're going to start the parlay party, baby. Let's go. You know what? If you look on X at SickPod Browns, at AndyMC81, and Instagram at AndyMC Sports, I put out a 5-legger yesterday, which I still like. But let's go through the rest of the games. Let's pick everything here. Okay. We're going to pick everything. I'll keep the 5-leggers. So far, I have Denver covering the spread against Kansas City in Chiefland. 7.5. Too high. Too high. Denver's been better than expected. The Chiefs haven't been scoring prolifically. Chiefs win, but by more than a touchdown division rival, I think the Broncos can hang. So I'm taking the Broncos to cover, taking the Saints to cover at 3.5. I just talked about how bad they were. They're hosting the Falcons. But you do often see that coach bump. Somebody fired, team rallies 1 week, then get the rally out of the way, then dump and have the Browns beat them next week. 3.5, I got them covering. Buccaneers, 6.5-point dogs hosting the 49ers. You got McCaffrey coming back, but not fully healthy. Debo coming back, not fully healthy. 49ers, again, haven't been tearing it up offensively, and the Buccaneers can hang. Baker's shown, even with the depleted wide receiver staff, can hang with anybody. So I got the Bucs covering that. Rams, 1.5-point favorites over the Dolphins. Dolphins aren't scaring anybody right now, and they're traveling cross country. I took the Rams minus 115 to cover that 1.5. And I'm taking straight up money line. Arizona Cardinals plus 112 over the Jets. Cardinals have been hot. Look at their last 4. 4 in a row. Playing well. We just don't think of them in a good light because the Cardinals are boring and they're in Arizona. And the Jets and Aaron Rodgers, could they pop? Absolutely. Will they? I'm not super confident. I like the Cardinals play in that one. That's the first 5. Let's go through the other ones here, and let me know your best bets. I want to know. I want to get some parlays from you guys. What are you betting on? Anytime touchdowns, whatever you got. Ooh, Patriots and Bears. Ugh, what a dog. Over under set 38.5. Patriots are 6.5-point dogs. Ah, boy. Can the Bears win by a touchdown? That game sucks. You know what? I'd rather not bet on that one, to be honest with you. I'm not going to put it in my parlay. But if we had to, I'll take the Pats to cover. What about under 38.5? Maybe that's the play. Let's go under 38.5. That game sucks. I don't want to bet on that. Colts, Bills. Bills, 4.5-point road favorites. Over under set at 46.5. Do we get good Joe Flacco who can light it up? Do we get bad Joe Flacco who doesn't? Let's look. Oh, Rick's got a bet here. What do you got? Jonathan Taylor in the chat here. Jonathan Taylor, anytime TD. Last time he played Buffalo, 2021. Torched the Bills. 184 yards and 4 touchdowns. Bills D still isn't good against the run. I like that one, Rick. Yeah. You know what? We're cooking that one, baby. Let's do it. That'll be the bet for that one. Never mind the game itself. Let's see what odds we got on Jonathan Taylor anytime tutty. Minus 130. You can get plus 460 for the first touchdown, plus 600 for the last. Those are always tricky. I'm going to go with that minus 130 anytime. You know what, too, in that game? I'm loving me some Ray Davis. And you guys know, you listen to the show. I've been touting Ray Davis since the draft. I wanted the Browns to take him. I think maybe a Ray Davis anytime TD. I'm going to pop that in there at plus 380. A little dicey. You don't have to. But I'm going to put Ray Davis in there, too. I love Ray Davis. I think that guy's just got so much potential. He can catch. He can block. Bulldozer at the goal line, 2 goal line carry. Minnesota, Jacksonville. Vikings, more than a touchdown. I think we're taking that minus 105. I'm taking, they should absolutely torch them. We got that. What else do we got? We talked about the Broncos, the Saints, Steelers, Commanders. Commanders, 2.5-point favorites at home against Pittsburgh. Squealers plus 120. Doesn't this just seem like a game that Mike Tomlin's going to outcoach the rookie? God, I hope I'm wrong. You know what? For my parlay, because I'm always so jaded against, because I hate the Steelers and the Ravens, I'm not going to bet on the game itself there. But if I was, I would take the plus 120 money line on Pittsburgh. They could. We've seen them squeak out these games. We've seen them do it. Plus 120 is pretty good money on the Steelers there. Titans, Chargers. Chargers by 7.5 over the Titans. My only concern is the Titans defense still stingy. They can still kind of keep you down there. I wouldn't mind an anytime touchdown maybe on Tony Pollard. Chargers by 7.5. That's minus 115. Can the Titans cover? Boy. Let's just see real quick the Titans. I just want to see how much they've lost by the last few games. They beat the Patriots 2017, lost 52-14 to the Lions, 34-10. We lost to the Colts. Yeah. You know what? Let's take Chargers to win by more than 7.5. Maybe they win by 10. Titans are not as talented as the Browns, and they put the boots to the Browns, right? Yeah, that's a trap game. Rick says, absolutely. I'm with you. It's again, there's a lot of games this week where I'm like, if I don't have to bet, I won't. So that's another game where I probably would stay away from. But if we got to bet, I think that 7.5 Chargers are really cooking and looking good. Then we got Philly Cowboys. Now, this is a number. How about this? Eagles to win straight up -320 on the money line. Not interested. Eagles to win by 7.5 +100. Cowboys got Cooper Rush in there. How are they going to be scoring points? Eagles are starting to cook. I'm taking Eagles +100 right here. Absolutely, I am. 425 game? Absolutely. And then we have Detroit in Houston against the Texans. Texans might be getting Nico Collins back. How effective will he be? Tank Dell's banged up. CJ Stroud hasn't looked like himself, still not terrible, but the offense not as dynamic as it was. The Lions at 3.5. To win by more than 3.5 is -104. I'm going to take the Lions 3.5. And the over-under set at 49.5. I don't know if Houston can hang. I might take the under there too, but I'll take the Lions to cover that 3.5. They can win by a touchdown the way the Lions have been playing. Zadarius Smith, by the way, is going to be a game-time decision whether he plays or not coming over from the Browns because it was supposed to be his bye week, and the Lions have had their bye week. So if he plays this week, he won't get another bye the whole year. So they say they might sit him. And then we picked the Dolphins and Rams already. I think that's all. I think we got all the games there, right? Let's see. Monday Nighter Dolphins Rams. Okay. So if we're on the DraftKings Sportsbook, oh baby. Woo-wee, 11-legger. Put $10 on it. $28,878.43. Oh. Is there any? Oh boy. Put a couple bucks on that. What if we just put $2 for fun? $5,775.69. Who's with me on this 11-legger? I really like that anytime touchdown play from you, Rick. Cooper Rush. I know, Rick. I know he's 4-1 as a starter. I get it. But this team, this Dallas team, there's no running game. They're ineffective. You just got CeeDee Lamb. Again, I think Cooper Rush is a capable-ish backup. But the problem is, if the Eagles can get up on them, then you're going to force Cooper Rush. And those Cooper Rush games, for the most part, games were kind of close. If the Eagles make him push, could result in turnovers. So I don't have a lot of confidence in Cooper Rush, personally, especially with how well the Eagles have been playing. Division game, of course, you never know. But that's my thinking on that game. I'm not trusting in the Cowboys there. So there we got the parlay party. Of course, folks, an official sports betting partner of the NFL is the DraftKings Sportsbook. #1 place to bet touchdowns. New to DraftKings? Try betting on something simple like a player to score a touchdown. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app, make your pick. Maybe it's Jonathan Taylor getting an anytime touchdown, right? You can score big with the DraftKings Sportsbook app, the #1 place to bet touchdowns. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Use code 6sports. That's code 6sports for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas. 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ftball.
All right, so there you go. I'm just looking looks like for Dak Prescott, we know where he's going to get a second opinion, I think Monday, but leaning towards season-ending surgery. So this is toast. I'm fascinated to see what happens with Dallas. Is that used as an excuse to bring McCarthy and the crew back because Dak is out? You got to lay the blame squarely on Jerry Jones. He did nothing in the offseason and has been, you bring in Mingo as a receiver, I don't mind it, but this is on Jerry Jones and his lack of building out that Cowboys team in what he thought was an open window. That running back group, you better draft the guy. You got to get a whole lot younger and more effective if you're Dallas. Terrible. All right, folks, there you go. Big thanks to Dave D'Natale from WKYC Sports in Cleveland, looking at the Browns at the bye, the fantasy football questions, the betting, the parlay party. If you got any other questions, of course, fantasy football start sits, betting, whatever it might be. Let me know your starting lineup. Let me know your parlays. Let me know the crazy stuff. Get me on X at AndyMC81 at SickPodBrowns. Use hashtag AskAndy. That's how I find it. And then on Instagram and TikTok at AndyMCSports. So thanks to Dave DiNatale, producer Shane, and to all of you. You've been watching the Sick Podcast with Andy McNamara. And even in the bye week, go Browns.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Andy McNamara on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.